Alright, so let's dive into this whole situation with India's domestically produced fighter jets. Now, if you've ever heard of the Indian Light, you know it's supposed to be this shining example of India's aerospace industry, right? But, well, let me tell you, there's a reason the whole world is kind of giving it the side eye. So, last March, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, shows up at this big military exercise in Rajasthan. He's all pumped, watching the Tejas jets in action. And then, bam! One of the jets goes out of control and crashes right in front of him. Yeah, that's right, it crashed, while he was literally there watching. It hit a busy residential area, and boom, you had flames, smoke everywhere. That's gotta be one of the most embarrassing moments of his life. Honestly, think about it. Since India became a nation in 1950, they've crashed over 2,000 planes. That's not even counting all the crashes during tests, exercises, real battles, or parades. The sad part? Every time they make a big deal about their aircraft, they're like, look at us, we've got this incredible fighter jet. And then it crashes. Every time. And after 23 years, the Tejas was supposed to be the one saving grace, the one that's never had an accident. Then boom, that happened. Right in front of the guy who's supposed to be proud of it.so. You gotta wonder, right? Why do Indian jets keep crashing? Is their whole industrial base that bad? Why does everyone seem to avoid buying the Tejas, even though India talks it up so much? Well, let's break it down. First off, they have a huge pricing issue. The Tejas is priced at $85 million for just the basic model. Yup, $85 million for a jet that's like third-rate at best. And that's not even including all the hidden costs like maintenance, upgrades, training, and spare parts. So when you think about it, they're asking for top-tier money for something that's nowhere near top-tier quality. Now, you want to know what else is crazy? For comparison, the US F-35, arguably the most advanced fighter jet out there, sells for less than $80 million. And that thing is the real deal. The Tejas? It's a third-gen jet. It's got limited payload, its endurance is under an hour, and it's honestly just not that great. Even if you stack it up against other third-gen jets like the F-16 or fourth-gen like the Su-35, the Tejas doesn't even come close. And the stability? Well, it's a bit questionable. So, yeah, when you compare the Tejas to an F-35 or even a Russian-made Su-35, it's pretty obvious what the smart choice is, right? But here's where things get really interesting. India claims the Tejas is a fully indigenous aircraft. Well, that's not exactly true. Actually, over 80% of the parts are sourced from other countries. The engine? It's based on the US F-404 GEIN-20, which is a downgraded version of the engine used in American jets. They slap a different coating on it, and boom, it's Indian. Then, they've got the radar and communication systems straight from Israel. Oh, and don't forget about the refueling probe. They get that from the UK. The design. Let's just say the tailless delta wing is inspired by French tech, and even the cockpit and ejection seats are more or less copies from other countries.so. Yeah, the whole thing is a bit of a Frankenstein monster. They took bits and pieces from all over the place and tried to stitch them together into one jet. And guess what? It took them 34 years to do that, and it still doesn't work right. The crash that happened last year? Yeah, that's a huge red flag about the overall reliability and safety of this indigenous aircraft. Now, the Tejas doesn't have the performance to back up the price tag. This brings up an interesting question. Why the crazy price? Okay, so here's the deal. India's in a bit of a tough spot with this whole thing. They set their prices so high because they literally backed themselves into a corner. It took them 34 years and a ton of money to develop their domestic fighter jet, the Tejas. That's right, 34 years. So, the cost of all that research and development? It's gotten pretty out of hand. Even at a price tag of $85 million, they're struggling to break even. And if they priced it any lower, they'd be losing money big time. Now, here's where things get complicated. India's been hyping up this aircraft for over a decade. They even claimed it could outclass American jets. So, after all that hype, how could they possibly lower the price? It would be like admitting they were wrong all along. But here's the thing. If they priced it lower than the US F-35, it'd be a massive slap in the face to their own claims. So they keep the price high, hoping to save face. The only problem? Other countries aren't stupid. Why would they buy a jet that's priced higher than an F-35, which is way more advanced? They're not going to pay top dollar for something that doesn't even measure up. So, yeah, no one's buying. But here's where things get interesting. Western countries need India on their side, especially in South Asia. So they've got to give India some respect. Western media, political leaders, everyone, when India talks about the Tejas, the media attention is huge. But here's the funny thing. The media loves covering it, but when it comes to actually buying it, no one is biting. It's like this weird paradox. The Tejas gets a ton of attention, but when it's time to put money down, crickets. And that's the issue India is facing with its fighter jet exports. Now, there's another huge reason why no one's buying these jets. And that's the high accident rate and safety concerns. Let's talk about this for a second. There's this company, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, or HAL. It's India's only government-owned aerospace manufacturer, and they handle almost all aircraft production and maintenance in the country. Here's where it gets wild. Over the past 50 years, HAL has been responsible for producing and maintaining aircraft with a 60% accident rate. Yeah, you heard that right, 60%. That means out of every 10 planes that go through HAL's hands, 6 of them are likely to be involved in some kind of accident. The odds are way higher than winning the lottery, folks. And it's not just the planes they build, it's the ones they maintain too. So, for example, the Soviet Union gave HAL the full set of design blueprints for the MiG-21, and what happened? They completely screwed up the maintenance, and crashes became a regular occurrence. This isn't just a one-off either, this is a recurring problem. Alright, so here's where things get even crazier. A while back, France and the UK teamed up to jointly develop the Jaguar attack aircraft and handed them over to India for production. Guess what happened? 8 of those planes crashed, and 6 of them were total write-offs. To make matters worse, the French Air Force sent 4 of their first-gen Mirage 2000s and 3 MiG-29s to Hindustan Aeronautics, HAL, for major repairs. What happened? Yep, they all crashed. And here's the real kicker. Why is no one buying Indian-made planes? Well, the prices are outrageously high, the performance doesn't stack up, and safety and stability are always in question. But, believe it or not, one country actually decided to give it a shot. And let's just say they regretted it in a big way. That country is Ecuador. They must have misunderstood something about India's aerospace capabilities because they went ahead and bought 7 ALH-Druve helicopters from India. This helicopter was developed by HAL in collaboration with a German company and took a solid 11 years to complete. After its test flight in 1998, it was put on the global market. But surprise, surprise, sales were dismal. So India dropped the price and Ecuador, seeing a bargain, decided to buy 7 units. Not long after, Ecuador's military sent 2 of those helicopters to a parade, and well, things took a dramatic turn. One of the helicopters suddenly started puffing black smoke, and then it started swerving out of control, plummeting toward the ground. And where did it head straight for? Right toward the presidential viewing platform. Luckily, the pilot managed to pull off an emergency landing in a nearby field, narrowly avoiding a disaster. It was a close call, but the president's life was spared. But the story doesn't end there. The Ecuadorian president, probably still in denial after already sinking a lot of cash into these helicopters, decided to use one of those same Druves as his personal transport just a few days later. You can guess what happened next. During a test flight before his departure, the helicopter literally exploded in midair. Yup, the president barely escaped with his life. After these 2 near-death experiences, the president completely lost confidence in Indian-made aircraft. He literally tossed the helicopters aside, letting them gather dust. This whole fiasco sent a loud and clear message to world leaders. No one's willing to put their life on the line for the safety of Indian-made aircraft. Well, the performance is outdated, the prices are ridiculously high, and there's a constant question mark about their stability and safety. These are the main reasons why no one wants to buy them. But I'm sure you're wondering, does India even realize this? After all these years of no one buying their planes, haven't they stopped to think about why their products aren't flying off the shelves? Well, the answer is pretty clear. The issue with Indian aircraft goes beyond just the planes themselves. It's all about the country's industrial capabilities and their whole way of doing things. To put it simply, India just doesn't play by the rules. Take a look at the pictures that leaked from Hindustan Aeronautics, HAL, workshop, and you'll see the chaos inside. The setup is wild, and the quality of the technical workforce is, let's just say, not great. It's common to hear about situations where they take a bunch of parts apart, only to realize they can't put them back together properly. Their production process is super simple and, well, a bit brutal compared to the methods of industrial powerhouses. Manufacturing a fighter jet is an incredibly complicated task that involves thousands of parts. Every tiny detail matters. If one part is missing or one screw isn't tightened, it could lead to a catastrophic failure. But in India, that level of attention just isn't there. Take, for instance, aircraft used on aircraft carriers. These planes need to be able to take off, land, provide air cover, do reconnaissance, and even transport goods. That requires top-notch performance to ensure smooth landing operations. And to get those planes where they need to be on a carrier, they need special high-performance towing vehicles. These towing vehicles have to meet really strict standards. They need massive pulling power, high weight capacity, minimal vibrations, and they need to be compact to fit in tight spaces. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The US and China, for example, spent years and millions of dollars to develop tow tractors that meet these tough requirements. But India? Nah, they don't play by those standards. Instead of investing in the right equipment, they use cheap tractors that cost just a few $1,000s, way below the price tag of a proper towing vehicle that costs millions. And guess what happens? If they're not careful, they can easily damage a plane or worse, cause a massive accident that could delay military operations and supply chains. As long as India refuses to stick to proper procedures and cut corners, the performance and safety of their planes will always be questionable. Now, it's clear why no one's willing to take a chance on their aircraft, right?